And to be a part of the program, give us a call right here at 901-327-2500 as we talk more about education for African Americans, specifically education for African Americans. And Talut, are we live streaming?
Yes.
We are on the internet, we are live streaming. 1600 AM WMQM live stream, or 1600 WM TuneInRadio.com 901-327-2500. But first, before we get rolling, now look, if you see smoke coming from the building, call the fire department, because it's hot down there. Youth Leadership Conference coming up. May the 28th. Starting at 2, from 2 to 4. Sponsored by the Love Power Show and the Java Complex. And we will take on several issues and campaigns. We have them already lined up, but we'll talk more about those issues and campaigns as we go forward. I want to say a few things about some friends of mine at the Cleveland Street Flea Market. Lois Lomax. She has African dresses, African jewelry, red, black, and green, books, body oils, and soap. Go see my friend Shirley Patton for all of your sewing needs. Hems, buttons, cuffs, or complete outfits for that matter. She's an expert in her field. And K1 says, mow the lawn. Give him a call, and he'll mow your lawn for you. K1. Last but not least, Dr. Umar Johnson. Coming soon, 1036 Firestone, May the 14th, 4 to 7. Doors open at 2. And Manefa Productions, coming soon. Sponsoring Asra Kwesi and his wife, Manira Kwesi. MLK Center, 2:30, opening at 2:30. As we've said, we're talking about education for African Americans. Omar, we've got a document here by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. And that was a long time ago. But he spoke about some things, and my question to that effect is, since it was a long time ago, relevant for African Americans today, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the work that he took upon himself to talk about African Americans. Brother Omar, go ahead. And you may want to do whatever you need to do there. Go ahead and take care.
Let me say that this is Mother's Day, and we'd like to wish well wishes to all the mothers who are in our listening audience, and those who maybe should have been listening but may not be here today because they're celebrating. And I'd like to also remind our listeners that every time you have a birthday, that's also Mother's Day. On your birthday, you should honor your mother. Give her a gift for bringing you into the world, going through all the pain and suffering that she went through to get you here. And with that being said, happy Mother's Day to everybody who is a mother and those who have mother children that they didn't have, even the grandmothers in the audience. The views and opinions expressed on this show are not necessarily the views and opinions of this radio station, nor of our advertisers. And with that being said, I'd like to answer the question by putting this out there. There was some kind of story about a man named Rip Van Winkle who went to sleep. And he slept for 100 years and then he woke up. Mm-hmm. And the world had changed in that 100 years. And there's another allegory about some black people that went to sleep. And when they woke up 100 years later, nothing had changed. The things are still the same.
They didn't go to sleep, did they?
They went to sleep.
So
And so the story they read before they went to sleep is the same one. They just picked up on it and kept on rolling with it. Nothing changed.
so this is
Our
go
reality
ahead.
has not changed, and we need to understand that that reality must change if we're going to survive into the 21st century.
Okay. Now I've listened to much. Well, I'm going to keep it to some talk shows that I've heard today, Talut.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about Mother's Day,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Mother's Day is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And to honor all of our parents and ancestors is a good thing. My mother died when I was 11, but here's the deal. I didn't hear anyone talk about even a little bit of the history of Mother's Day, Talut. And I have here a document before me, and I won't do the whole document.
Okay.
I'll just do a little short paragraph, okay? And here's what it says. And this is a document. It says that the history of Mother's Day by Julia Ward Howe, Howe, or Howe, I think it's Howe. The idea of official celebration of Mother's Day in U.S. was first suggested by Julia Ward Howe in 1872. An activist, writer, and poet, Julia shot to fame with her famous Civil War song, Battle Hymn of the Republic. Julia Ward Howe suggested that June 2nd be annually celebrated as Mother's Day and should be dedicated to peace. She wrote a passionate appeal to women and urged them to rise against war in her famous Mother's Day proclamation, written in Boston in 1870. She also initiated a Mother's Peace Day observance on the second Sunday in June in Boston and held a meeting for a number of years. Julia tirelessly championed the cause of official celebration of Mother's Day and declaration of official holiday on the day. Her idea spread but was later replaced by the Mother's Day holiday now celebrated in May. We don't have to get off on that because we're talking about education.
Right, right. But that's a good form of education.
And we've said on the phone when we've talked that education is broad.
It's very broad.
And you just said that it's a good form of education. And we've said that the Love Power Show is informative and it's exciting. We've said that. So we presented. We look. I've been advised not to talk so much. Come on, Talut.
I don't think.
Come on, Talut.
Well,
Dr. Carter G. Woodson, education.
well, of course, it's more to it than one individual or group of individuals. Education is a natural, God-given process. It has nothing to do with quotes and statements and books and bindings, and it has nothing to do with any of that. And I just like to go to the raw meaning of education.
Okay, come on.
Okay, the very raw, the very essence of education. Why? Because today is Mother's Day. Okay, and the essence of education is mother. It's nothing more than mother. Means the educator. Okay, the nurturer. Okay, it means these things. Okay, so what we have to do is get away from the he said. Okay, and we are so-called educated through indoctrination. Okay, and that indoctrination is everything that is started in the United States or in the world is started by a Caucasian, European, or white. Everything. Accounting, when you open up any book in your discipline or in your profession, the first paragraph is going to indoctrinate you to believe that the first person that started your discipline was a white, Caucasian, or European. Okay, every book. Accounting, the first person that drew the key for accounting, with the debit and credit on each side, was a white, Caucasian, European. So you go back to every discipline. So education in America is not education, but indoctrination. okay, so that we would come to conclude that we are worthless, we created nothing of relevance, okay, we don't have the capacity to develop or create things worthy in society, which is false, 100% false, okay? So the thing about education, let's look at the natural part of education. Of course, we know the Babylonians were the ones who first came up with the accounting system, first came up with agriculture, first came up with binding books, which in Babylon, of course, we know is also Iraq, okay? Those people over there are the ones who first started many of the disciplines that we're dealing with right now in our professions, okay? But mother is the educator. And now if you have no education, it's because your mother didn't give you any education. Okay? Now education from mother takes place in those first few months of your life, when she's whispering in your ear and doing all these various things that mothers do to her child. She's educating you. Okay? So that's my part on it. But of course we love Carter G. Woodson, and we love all our great artists, okay, and those who try to point us in certain directions to become, comparable to, white, Caucasian Europeans, to help us try to come up to their level. But personally, I believe that we are far beyond their level. We've been beat back down.
Okay, been beat down.
We've been beat down.
Okay. Well, I say people who call themselves white. Omar, what Talut just said, Carter G. Woodson actually agrees with as interpretation, critical, analytical perspective. So I'll go back to you again, and I ask you, is Carter G. Woodson's work relevant today, in 2016, for African Americans as we have began our discussion today? And then I want to read a paragraph from another document. Come on, Omar, help us out.
Let's look at what Carter G. Woodson, some of the things he said.
Okay.
He said that when you look at the institutions in the black community, many of them don't serve the people in the black community, especially the educated Negro. A lot of them get to a certain level of education and they want to cross over. If they could paint themselves white overnight, they would do it without a second thought. A lot of them don't want to live around the people that they came up out of. You came up out of poverty, you came up out of racial discrimination, and then once you get a degree, you want to move away from that, when you really should be trying to get yourself intimately entangled in it so you can help the other people that are still oppressed by it. Some of us become hirelings, not heroes or leaders, but become hirelings for the enemy, the oppressor. And when you become a hireling, that means that you have crossed over into their camp, and now you're going to be a surrogate. You're going to be a surrogate for the oppressor to oppress your own people. Those are the things Dr. Carter G. Woodson was talking about, is when you have black folk who are not being properly educated, in fact, who are being miseducated, and then you have them, when they get a so-called education in the white man's system, they come back and oppress the black folk that are still being miseducated. Somewhere we got to change that dynamic around. And he also said this. He said that, if you think about it, Carter G. Woodson didn't even go to high school until he was 20 years old. That's when he went to high school. He graduated in 2 years, and eventually he ended up being a Harvard graduate, the second one behind Du Bois. But he said that if you can escape what the white man is teaching you, which, and like Dr. Talut just said, everything that he teaches you about white superiority and black inferiority. Everything he teaches you. Not just he talked about economics, but every book you pick up, every discipline you can think of. He has himself as a superior force, and you are inferior, or you're non-existent. So you get the complex that you don't matter in the scheme of things in this world. That is still happening today, and that needs to change.
Okay.
I back in my day when we went to segregated schools, I think we need to go back to segregated schools. Have our own teachers for our own children.
Okay. Let's take a call from Brother Kazi, and then I will read this document, Talut. Take 90 seconds, Kazi. 90 seconds, Kazi.
To say one thing regarding to Mother's Day, I have a great thank you for my mother, who had at most sixth grade education. As we speak about education, my father, roughly eighth grade education. And they all came up from Mississippi to South Memphis on Dyson and Person Street to work at the Ford plant. And in that area on that block was Eddie White's club there, the Stacks, not Stacks, but Forerunner Stacks, down Pasadena's band. On the other corner was also Club Independence. Our neighbors were market people who had their own business, right and left. Reverend Love was our neighbor to the left, across the street. Reverend Johnson, another minister, all had independent jobs. And what I'm trying to say is that that was a microcosm to me of what a functioning community looks like. And of course, other things happened, but that was a great introduction for me. And my mother wanted to go to school, but the father could only send one daughter, who went to Woodstock Normal, which was a boarding school where Ida B. Wells taught. And later on, she finally graduated from college the same year as her daughter, some 30 years later. But she could teach anyway, and she taught for many years in my area, and we lived right across the street from the Henry Street School. I just want to say that my education and take on education is a generational thing. Each generation masters what the generation before them learned. And we were talking about Carter Woodson, and it must be passed on. And unfortunately, in cases where you don't have a mother and a father,
30 seconds, Kazi.
We have to find a way to do that.
Yes, we do.
I do thank you very much.
And we thank you for your call. And Kazi, he said some things, and I know Kazi, and I know of his family and family tradition, and they're all quite creative, quite skillful, and quite enterprising people. And Brother Kazi, he's a manufacturer. And he said, in compliance with what you said, Omar, that then our people with little or no so-called modern education were quite productive, is what he said. Now, I read from a document that says history is a weapon. And what you will find in this document is an agreement, Talut, between W.E.B. Du Bois and Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Real quick, bear with me. In most imperative and crucial element, the most imperative and crucial element in Woodson's concept of miseducation hinged on the education system's failure to present authentic African American history in schools. It says Negro, but we're saying African Americans. In schools, and the bitter knowledge that there was a scarcity of literature available for such a purpose, because most history books gave little or no space to the black man's presence in America. Some of them contain casual references to African Americans, but these generally depicted them in menial, subordinate roles, more or less subhuman. Such books stressed their good fortune to having been exposed through slavery to the higher white man's civilization. There were included derogatory statements related to the primitive, heathenish quality of the African American background, but nothing denoting skills, abilities, contributions, or potential in the image of blacks in Africa or America. Woodson considered the statement of affairs deplorable, an American tragedy, dooming the African American to a brainwashed acceptance of the inferior roles assigned to him by the dominant race and absorbed by him through his schooling. It's 2016, and let us rise up and throw off the yoke of detrimental, dire, destructive indoctrination of those who call themselves white and superior. Talut.
Well, of course, many of our great leaders of old, around the turn of the 19th century, leaders and liberators, freedom fighters, who became educated or indoctrinated through the education system of, as you said, so-called white, European and Caucasian. They were primarily reacting to the environment at hand. And many of them wrote and taught in a way that was directly in relationship to the lives that they had been living, okay, and the lives of their people in the South, okay. So, and I keep pounding on the fact that life in the South was substantially different than life in other parts of the country for Black Americans, okay, or Black folk.
Break it down for us.
Well, in that, many of the books that we read today and of our leaders of the 19th century, okay, were because, again, of their lifestyle in living in the South, or having known someone like Frederick Douglass, who came out of the South and ended in the North, Northeast. So, but times have changed now. Okay, we live in a different zone, a different element, a different environment, different everything. And it's been a few hundred years since these men presented their case. Well documented, profound argument cases is what we read when we read in the books, read of the books or from the books of our great leaders of the 19th century, who happen to be Black Americans. Today, and I'll give you one example. Back to what Dr. Baruta said earlier about we need to drop all these school systems and create our own. Okay, I had 3 children, with my son who's now deceased. All 3 of them graduated from Sister Clara Muhammad School. Okay, all 3 of them. My daughters have led good lives, very good lives. Okay, very good life in the real estate profession, following their father. Done much better than I did, I can tell you that. Okay, even today. Okay, so we have to get out of the mindset, and let me explain to you what Sister Clara Muhammad School is about. Sister Clara Muhammad School was a school, or is a school, that was established by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his wife, or his wife established the school system, thereby the system being honored for her name, Clara Muhammad, right? And these were private schools, a quasi-private school, Montessori type education system, untraditional education, education that didn't run in concurrent with public school systems that we know about, and other private school systems. In other words, it was our own educational system. And if these children who graduated, and I mean dozens and hundreds of them across the United States of America, graduated from Sister Clara Muhammad School, and they all have made great contributions in society. Okay, all have been able to make a living for themselves primarily. So that's proof and evidence, okay, in hand that Black people, Black folk, can educate themselves and compete successfully in society. So we do need to drop the idea that our children should be going to schools, reading and learning from a curriculum that's given to them by white folk. We got to get away from that. Even white folk know we need to get away from that. They are tired of us. Look, they are sick and tired of us.
Of the African American.
We just We just fall down on our hands and knees before them on everything, and they are just tired of it.
Okay. Even I heard a white man say not long ago that the present educational system is irrelevant to our own children.
It's absolutely.
So you know it's bad when the white man says it's bad. It's bad for their own children. And here's the piece here. Well, we're still on education, but let's transition just a little bit. It says Memphis makes the nation's most ambitious effort to fix failed schools. What happens in Memphis will reveal the power and limits of education reform. So that document even says that something is wrong. But we see the closing of many schools, Omar, right here in Memphis. And it sounds like this paragraph refers to that element in the issues facing African Americans. He spoke with Sister Clara Muhammad School. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, do for self. And we are every Sunday coming to this station, this show, and saying we must do for ourselves, be responsible, and accountable. Book Omar called a couple of weeks ago, patrolling our own neighborhoods. Want to know what we thought about that. And we think it is absolutely an excellent idea. Omar, the educational system, what's going on with it? You have some facts and figures about the salaries. Brother Pianki called, and he was a little short last week about the salaries that teachers make. Let's get into that a little bit.
Let's deal with the salaries first, since that was information given out last week. And I'll start with myself. I mentioned earlier that when I came to Memphis in 1976, the salary was $6,000 less than I made in St. Louis, in the suburb of Kinloch, Missouri, right outside of Ferguson. And when I look at the way I have gone through, the school system, and I turned the job down because of the salary, because I had a family to take care of, and I had gotten them accustomed to a certain standard, and I didn't want to lower the standard. I would love to teach, but then I didn't want to lower the standard. And the teacher, the lady was hiring me and said that, you know what, the children here, they're just so bad, you may not want to teach here. I said, what are the problems? See, they're throwing spitballs, and they're putting gum under the seat. And I had to tell, I just came from a school system where if a child got a bad grade, they would slash the teacher's tires. I saw teachers get beat in the hallway with those, I don't know what those sticks were called, but the two sticks with the chain in between them that they use in karate classes.
Wow.
Those
Nunchucks.
Nunchucks, yeah. I saw that. I saw teachers at when I was substitute teaching, every classroom I went into, there was the roll book, there was a lesson plan, and there was a pistol in the drawer. Mm-hmm. The principal's office stayed locked. You had a two-way mirror on the door. You had to look through the door and then look out and see who you were before they let you in. That's the kind of school system I left when I came to Memphis, and I was just thinking, you ain't seen nothing yet, baby. Because that behavior up north is going to eventually be in the South. But if you look at the salaries of the teachers today, when I left Sears as an appliance salesman, last year in Sears, 1998, I made $48,000 that year. Today, teachers are just now making $45,000 to $48,000 right now with 5 years of experience, and that's throughout the United States of America. Now, sometimes they'll take the principal's salary and include it into the teacher's salary to inflate the average pay. But let's just talk about the teachers. That salary is not there. And then if you look at the school system today, and I'm with Dr. Talut, we have got to get black teachers teaching black children. They need that teacher as a role model. And then that teacher can put the right slant on everything that we teach our children to make them understand. They fit into the history of economics. They fit into the history of mathematics. They fit into the history of chemistry, biology. My son right now is at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. He called me last week. Even though he's getting his PhD degree, here's what he said. I want to incorporate an entity. CAUSE, CAAUSC, and it stands for Community Activist Advancing Underprivileged Student Education. And he wants to go into the city of Detroit and go into those schools that are failing with a group of students from the University of Ann Arbor, some black students who go in there, they want to go in there and tackle those failing situations and bring them up to where the student can be successful. But he feels like if we go in there as black activists, then they'll listen. And he's right. They will listen. If you look at the work of Dr. Joy DeGruy, she has found that out over and over again. When you give a child a sense of self-pride and self-worth and self-knowledge, he goes to the top. As long as you keep him in the bottom and tell him he's nothing, he'll never be anything, he never rises to the to his fullest potential. That has to change. We got to do that.
And much work has been done going in that area that we're talking about. And we're calling for African American to stop asking someone else to do for our children what we should be doing as grown men and women for our own children. Now let's go back to the parent. There's one school that I know about. Most of their time goes to, well, I'm not going to say most, but a lot of their time goes to breaking up fights and conflict. So does that mean something is going on at home or not going on that should be going on at home? Does it have to do with father? It has something to do with parenting? And does the bulk of the responsibility fall on the parents? Now, Bianca said last week it wasn't the parenting, it was society. So where are we in terms of discussing that, Talut?
Where it's both.
Okay.
It's both.
Help us out. Go ahead.
Parents and society. Basically, what we've learned in the last 40 years is that whatever the previous educational administrations were conjuring up has failed. Exactly. As it is in Memphis, Tennessee, it's all across the country. The educational institution is demised. And what I mean by that is none of it works nowhere when it comes to public education. It just doesn't work. Okay? And those people who were promoting it 40 years ago, get an education, get a high school diploma, then they come along and say, okay, get a college degree. Then they come along and say, okay, get a PhD. And even though many of us followed their lead, we have found ourselves in a quagmire of destruction. Okay? We have nothing to show for it. So what we've done is lost time. Now, last week I had mentioned that Almighty God has us in a process. And the process is from enslavement to liberation. Okay, and that process is a natural phenomenon. But what we have done is picked up, we dropped God-given process, and we picked up the white man, the European, Caucasian, and whites process. Okay, which is our destruction. Yes. That eliminates us. Now, when it comes to something like the Memphis school system, see, what we have is a problem with politicians. Memphis and Shelby County has the worst problem with politicians than anybody in the country, in the United States. And it's a proven fact. Condition. Then look at the condition of people in other parts of the country, where the politicians are more responsive. Here, we have a plantation-type political structure. Okay, now we use that loosely in our conversation, but the fact is, it's destroying our lives. And we think that it's natural to have no good, low-lifed, political leaders in Nashville buying dinners for the. Okay, that's El-Amin.
Take 30 seconds and wrap it up.
Thank you very much, sir. But we have to, in Memphis and Shelby County, we have to open our eyes. We have to determine that we have to have a revolution in politics by itself. Okay? Get rid of, destroy the political system that we have now and create and develop a new one. And who can do that? Well, I can do it.
Okay.
I can do it.
Okay.
Okay. I know
you need
Omar can do it.
Assistance.
You can do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
We can
and
do
that's what
it.
we're talking about.
Yeah.
Assuming the responsibility.
We can do it.
Now, real quick, it has been said that the present educational system has trained individuals to be workers and workers only.
Yes.
And we constantly hear, get a good education and go get a job.
Right.
We constantly hear that. Now, you've brought in the element of politicians, deadbeat politician, no good politician. Now, look, check this out. Let us perhaps next week discuss a political plantation type political in Memphis. What did you say, Talut? What you call it? A plantation type political
That's
structure
exactly
in Memphis.
in Shelby
So
County.
Omar, let's have the in Shelby County. Let's have that next week as a topic. Perhaps we can find some documentation so they won't call here talking about we're making up stuff. This is documented.
Actually,
Go
we can
ahead.
invite a politician who will agree with us that they aren't any good.
Okay. Will you take on that assignment?
Sure, I asked
Okay.
one to come on.
Yeah, you'll ask one to come on. Real quick, in this document here, a gradual but seismic shift in the governance and operation of public schools is taking place in Memphis schools, as the number of charter schools run in the city by Shelby County Schools and the state-run Achievement School District continues to boom. 10 charter schools, some overseen by the state and some by the regular school district, will open their doors for the first time in Memphis next year, and many charters that already exist are adding grades. Local educational leaders say they are looking toward New Orleans, where 90% students attend their charter schools, as a model for improving public education in historically troubled district. Dr. Umar Johnson said something about that last week, and he highly criticized that, talking about the detrimental aspects of what's going on with public school systems. So often you can hear these fancy words and phrases, and they are absolutely a trick for African Americans, because we've not taken upon the responsibility to do up for ourselves like we should be doing. Now, look, I don't like, some people say hero worship, but to highlight some things that are still relevant today, from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, College of Woodson, I don't think that's hero worship, Omar. But the direction of the public school system today in Memphis, and using New Orleans as a prototype, talk to us about that.
I've heard much talk in this political season about getting rid of the Department of Education completely.
Mm-hmm.
And if you leave it to the states to do funding, that will almost automatically mean that many of our black children will not be properly educated, because they won't have the funding to support the school system in which they are educated, because they don't feel like we should get an education anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Our lot is to be servants to the oppressor. That's what they put us here for, and that's what they want to keep us here for. And so education is not on the agenda for them, but not for us. So if they do that, then of course, and we're not ready, because we're not ready. We still want to hang with the white people and rub elbows with them. And at the end of the day, we still going back to the cabin where the slaves hang out at. So you'll never get there. I mean, when they put the black man in the White House, that's all they did. They didn't give him no power when he got there. He's going back to his house when it's all over. We have got to understand that we need to set up our own independent school system. It was Wallace, I can't think of the first name of that news commentator on the TV, that did a documentary called "The Hate That Hate Produces," and it was talking about, it had a video documentation of it, and they had these black children standing up like soldiers, answering all kinds of questions. Looked at them, they were like intelligent giants walking the earth, and that put fear in white people, that you can take a private school system and produce that.
Mm-hmm.
And act like leaders in the elementary school. Mm-hmm. That made them fearful of black people, especially the Nation of Islam. The same thing when they're fearful of you, they come against you. Of course, they've come against the nation many times, but they have not overcome the nation. Mm-hmm. They have done a lot of things to the nation to destroy leadership, but the nation still survives. Mm-hmm. We have got to understand that we got to do that not just in the Nation of Islam, but throughout the country. Mm-hmm. These churches that have schools, they should be oriented for the benefit of black people, not for Jesus. Mm-hmm. The mythical one they gave us that we don't understand, no way. Mm-hmm. It should be not for that. Mm-hmm. It should be for our own betterment and for our own rise in this world, so we can take our people from Africa and raise them up with us. They're waiting for us to do something, because if we do something, they'll stand up too. Mm-hmm. But until we do something, everybody of color is oppressed.
Exactly.
Talut, I think you want to respond to something he said, but I want to ask you, what are some of the courses that should be taught for African Americans and African American education, for starters?
Well, it's very important to teach the fundamentals of life. What is life? Okay? And from a philosophical standpoint, and it's very important that we understand trade and commerce. It's very important that we understand government. Okay, these are fundamental, basic things. But more importantly is, who are you? Answer the question. The question is, who am I? Who am I? Okay, what is my origin? Okay, why am I here? Okay, who can I turn to become even more enlightened of who I am? Okay, now, do we get that in the public schools in Memphis and Shelby County? No, no, no. The schools in Memphis and Shelby County are about indoctrinating huge populations of black folk to appreciate the enslavement that they're in, to appreciate it, and also to accept the ceiling over their heads. Okay? Many of us say it's a glass ceiling, but in reality, it's a real one. You can look up and see it any day. You can't get any higher than that. You already know you can't. So appreciate where you are and keep working. That's Memphis and Shelby County education system. Okay? In fact, they failed to produce books about a curriculum about African Americans.
Okay, help me out here. Who's they?
Pardon me. The Caucasian book administrators.
Okay, all right.
Now I know,
Go ahead,
I know that in some cases parents can take part in what the curriculum is going to be about. But by and large, it's a point worthy of reference in that at least a decade ago, and maybe 2 decades ago, the Memphis school system and Shelby County school system said no about African American education. They just didn't want those books in the system. So if they don't want books in the system about you and us, what is it that they want from us?
That is in fact insane.
Dr. Talut Muhammad sued the city.
I recall.
And won that lawsuit. They were supposed to put those books in the school system, but they never did.
They never
did. We've got a caller on the line.
Go ahead, caller.
Thank you so very much. And good afternoon.
90 seconds.
In terms of education, of course, the so-called educational process, which in fact that we have been familiar with growing up under this particular system of capitalism and democracy. That particular system is beginning to no longer exist, so therefore the so-called educational process was moved to a point of indoctrination, to the point of if you do not respond according to the indoctrination, you begin to see some of it may begin to surface. That when you talk about climate change now, there's a possibility you can go to jail if you speak against the theory. So we're now looking at what is evolving out of democracy and capitalism, and what we're seeing is a fascist socialist, communist, Nazi, Nazi, totalitarian technical dictatorship, which is coming into existence. It's already in place. Now you're going to see the manifestation of it, and that is beginning to show when they did democracy spring and the demonstrations began to Washington. Now you're seeing demonstration across the country. Well, it's backed by communists and the socialists who's bringing it into existence. And so the education, that which we call education, this saying 2 and 2 is 5. There is no more definition in terms of man, woman, mother, father. You got many other definitions, trisexual, bisexual, etc., which in fact is going to replace that with
30 seconds, Minister. 30 seconds and wrap it up. As the know he's got 30 seconds.
So all of that is changing now. And they're teaching us, the young people, not to follow too much of what we say, especially in some institutions that I know.
You got 15 seconds to wrap it up, Minister.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure. But you're saying in the conversation and discussion, must keep that in mind because it's not the same anymore in terms of information. It's a total indoctrination to fulfill social purposes. Thank you so much.
And thank you. Now I've got 5 more questions here, Talut, and they go off of what you just said. So let's do this. He said exactly what I was thinking as you made your presentation. Should education evolve or change, as he had just mentioned, as those of us who are experts, leaders, look at it and say, as in social media, for example, as in what's taking place in 2016, for example, should education change? Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it should change.
Well, the bottom line is we have to not so much change, we have to create education. Mm-hmm. We've never had it. Mm-hmm. The thing that we have been taught is how to communicate in a calendar. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay. How to speak properly to the boss. Yeah. Right. And how to count the boss materials.
And if you're so fortunate, go get a job. And if not, what we were looking at in Memphis, I saw something that really disturbed me yesterday. We are looking at our people. Now we're seeing more and more women on the street, in scooters, on rollers, hanging out begging, pushing basket carts. And it's so bad, Omar, we think it's the norm. Now, Talut just said we should be taught the fundamentals of life. We won't get into the details now, but later we will. Who are you? That's history. Life, trade, and commerce should be taught. And is that being taught in the public school system today, Omar? And while you're at it, last week Dr. Umar Johnson talked about, he did a take on Jawanza Kunju's school's work, the conspiracy to destroy black boys taking place right there in the school system. Michelle Alexander's work, Dr. Carter G. Woodson did it and said, public education, a prison pipeline for our young boys. Omar, go ahead.
You know, when you look at the atmosphere that we live in, where you have black households where it's 7% female head of household, and the attack on the black male, my wife and I did foster care for 8 years, and we had 32 foster children come to our homes. And most of those children were headed to some kind of incarceration. And we got the children that nobody else wanted. And if you look today, a lot of those children are incarcerated. And they came in at 13, 14, 15 years old. Our youngest one, 12 years old, had 34 felonies at 12 years old. And if you look at what Dr. Blanchard said, he said, a nation can rise no higher than its woman. Mm-hmm. He said, when you teach a man, you teach an individual, but when you teach a woman, you teach a nation. Yes. Because she is the first teacher. And what we have right now, we talked about what Bianca said with, not the parents that fall, this the society's fault. Well, it starts in the house. It starts in the birth canal, making sure that you got the right nourishment physically for that child, and even the right nourishment spiritually for that child while the child's in the birth canal. And then once it comes out into the world, then the education process continues on in a whole much more expanded way. But that foundation must be laid in that house by those parents. And if it's not laid in that house by those parents, you're going to get the condition we got now with our children. Not just the male children, but the female children. They're expanding in prison right now. They don't have no cell for females going to prison as we speak. At West Tennessee State Prison, they took Site 1 and took all the inmates out of Site 1 and shipped them across the state of Tennessee and made that side of prison just for women. Just for women, because they don't have enough beds throughout the whole state. So if we don't change what we do in our parenting, then we're going to continue with the condition. It's going to get worse. We got to fix that problem. Forget about the society. Hell, we are the society. It's got to start with us.
Okay, Dr. Umar Johnson has laid out, I listened to him earlier this morning on the previous show. He's laid out 7 programs for parenting that he's going to be discussing in his presentation on Saturday. Seven aspects of a program that deals with parenting, primarily with mothers. And I've asked the question on several occasions that are mothers, women, the carriers of a culture, a culture. So we get into what a culture is, then we get, and Talut pointed out that mothers are education. You just, when you said what you just said, these things come to my mind: culture in women and education. That's what comes to my mind. So, Talut, we've said that work must be done, and it's our responsibility because we know to do it. Is this, are many of our people afraid?
Yes.
Okay.
They're terrified.
Okay.
More afraid than they are of ISIS. You know, and it's a natural phenomenon.
Okay.
And we have to accept that.
Okay.
Okay. But look, let's deal with the master plan
Okay.
of the quote unquote so-called superior people. They learn to master the environment. Okay. They have satellites around the planet, and they master agriculture. They master the seeds. They genetically alter the seeds. Okay, they've taken all of the natural seeds out of the marketplace and replaced the natural seeds with genetically engineered GMOs, so that when you bite into a peach, it's even sweeter than it would be normally off the tree. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or however way they want to reproduce the agricultural product. They are doing the same thing with us. Our boys are our seeds. Our women and girls are our earth. So they're altering the seeds of black people. Okay? They're genetically altering how we respond to certain environments. They can get a gay boy. They can get a criminal boy. They can get any kind they want. They master the environment. They understand genetically altering. Okay, so what we're doing is we're thinking like people thought in the 18th century. That everything is okay. Everything is natural. We have to believe that when you bite into that potato or that onion, it is naturally like it's supposed to be. But it is not. Fact.
Yes.
It is not. So when you see one of our boys, you're actually thinking that you see one of us. You very well might not be. Okay?
Very well.
So, let me summarize one point. In order for us to, let me say this also about seeds. They have taken all of the natural seeds and have stored them in vaults. Locked them up. And the only seeds in the marketplace are those that are genetically altered. Again, that's what's happening to us. Okay, we got to deal with this from a scientific point of view and with our own innate God-given education and fight this monster that they've placed on us.
Okay. And you've said, and we've agreed, that education, is that CB on the line?
Yes.
Hold on, CB, I'm glad you called. We're coming right to you. That there's a war being waged against African Americans, and in war the men are attacked first, especially the young men. Now, Omar, having said that, those of us who think deeply, we here think deeply. I know you think deeply, but I can listen to the conversation until you think deeply. And I think deeply, and I come to the conclusion that we've just said, that it's scary out there. You can get killed and lose your life for taking on this problem. Omar, let's take CB and come back to you. Come on, CB.
All right, good afternoon, everybody.
90 seconds, CB, 30 seconds to wrap up. We'll give him 2 minutes. Come on, brother.
I continue to say it's the parents' responsibility to start the learning process at home. Parents must be inspirational in their children's upbringing so that the knowledge that they get from the schoolhouse can be used to produce more than just workers. Anybody can get an education and get a job, but a parent must motivate a child to get an education so that they can produce jobs for their community and other communities. One of the greatest pieces of literature that I ever read, and I don't know if it's true, they call the Willie Lynch letter, where this man Lynch went around and told the white slave owners, we can always control black folks. All we gotta do is pit the young against the old, the fetal against the house, the light skin against the dark skin. That was embedded into us. And we always went along with that premise. The other thing is, when you allow somebody else to dictate to you what your strengths and weaknesses are, rather than realizing that your strengths and weaknesses are equal to, and in some cases your strengths are better than theirs, but you accept that teaching, then that means that you've lost your ability to control your destiny.
30 seconds, brother.
Now, y'all can sit up and talk about the education system.
Yes.
You're right, the education system is designed. I got a friend that's retired from bed, he ain't even 50 years old yet. His daughter goes to a private school. And you know why she go to a private school? Because in that school, they teach the little white children, along with the 2, 3 little black children that's in those private schools, how to be corporate bosses.
CB, 15 seconds to wrap it up.
Worker, warehouse workers. So parents must be proactive and start doing those things that motivate their children to have a better life and also help to produce a better life for those in that community.
Okay. All right. Thank you, CB. CB, got one question for you.
Well,
CB, if you're still listening, when do we, those of us who know, the burden is on those who know. Is that right? When do we begin to do groundwork, CB? And you told me you worked with the Nation of Islam on at Mitchell Road, I believe it was. So when do we hit the ground? And what is our educational curriculum for starters? Because what I'm hearing is that that's a part of the educational process as well, Omar. From what we are hearing and seeing, there's a problem within the African American community. So we must hit the ground with a teaching process. And when do we get started? And what should be the introduction curriculum? And is it scary out there, Omar? And can you lose your life because there are those who do not want to see the African American? Though Talut pointed out, the so-called, those who call themselves white are absolutely tired of us, but there are others who have a different idea about us. Omar, how much time do we have, Isaac? We're up against the clock. We're up against the clock. Real quick, Omar, wrap it up and final thoughts. Talut.
Let me share this with the audience. Next Sunday, we're going to talk about this political structure.
Yes.
But I want you to go and research epigenetics and its effect on the behavior of black people.
Mm-hmm.
Because we talk about a generational curse. If we go back and look at the word epigenetics and then look at some of the literature on it, you will find some amazing facts. And those amazing facts are things that we must know moving forward if we're going to escape this so-called generation.
Okay.
But again, like what you were saying earlier, there are things that must be put in place, and there are some groups that are doing some things about our particular situation, but it's not enough. The Nation of Islam is one of those groups that's doing something, but it's not enough. And they make you hate the Nation of Islam, and they make you fear the Nation of Islam because they hate and fear the Nation of Islam, and they want you to do what they do, so you can be like white people.
And I think you're talking about the they in that case is negative media propaganda from the various
Think about this.
news outlets.
President Obama was one of the greatest recruiters for the KKK. People are afraid of black people in power, and here's a man that's in power, so weapons sales went up 400% while he's in presidency. But also the Klan and hate groups went up too, almost 1,000%. Now the biggest recruiter right now for the KKK is presumptive President Donald Trump.
Yeah, we're up against the clock. Final thoughts, Talut.
yes. Let us continue to think in terms of coalition. Let us think in terms of getting ourselves together to address these problems that we have. We have massive problems. Just the other night, gunshots was heard. 2 young men were shot. One is supposed to have passed away. So let's think in terms of solving our immediate problems.
Okay.
And thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. And I think that's it. I hope we'll take up here next week. We'll hear back from CB on his thoughts on that. Problems and solutions to those problems the African American face. We'll be addressing those issues next week. And thank you, Isaac Woodrich on keyboard.
Yes.